So on Saturday afternoon, I went to the big progressive protest in D.C., and this one was called the Hands Off Rally, meaning hands off Social Security, hands off Medicare, hands off Medicaid, and all the programs that Democrats are saying Republicans are going to cut. That was the reported theme. It was all going to be about protecting entitlements and protecting government workers. And there was some of that. But really, the theme was fuck Donald Trump, and especially fuck Elon Musk. He was really the focus of these progressives' ire. And I use the expletive because that's the expletive that was on many of the signs. Look, it was a pretty big protest. I think probably about 20,000, 30,000 people. And I love covering this kind of thing. I've been to a ton of left-wing protests, but it's been a while. So I took my iPhone and I went down there. Lots of people, tens of thousands, I would say. And you can see the footage I captured. Just go to the YouTube page if you're listening on the podcast site. It's Bite Size Politics. There was quite a bit, you'll see this in the video, of violent imagery from some of the more radical elements of the protest. Everyone there was clearly very mad, but more so I feel like they were deflated and frustrated. These people were not as loud, not as raucous as the protests I've been to in the past, not as loud as Occupy Wall Street. This was a very subdued crowd. And that makes sense because they are watching their worst nightmare come to fruition, and there's very little they can do right now other than take a sign to the National Mall or wherever other parts of the country these protests were being held in. There were quite a few. I think they said a couple hundred. Especially on the left, protest is seen as a good outlet for frustration. And on the right, not so much. They've had the Tea Party, but it's a tradition on the left. It goes back to the Civil Rights Movement. And I've been to a lot of these big rallies. The Rally to Restore Sanity in 2009. I mentioned Occupy Wall Street in 2010 and 2011. Various protests at the conventions. I kind of understand what these people are thinking. And protest is a healthy thing, as long as they remain peaceful. But there's no question that the left is in disarray right now. They are leaderless. They are practically voiceless. They are locked out of power. And yes, they're united against Trump. But from what I gathered, the rally was more of an effort to go after Musk. He's the villain. The left doesn't know how to deal with Trump, right? They're giving up after 8 years. I get it. But they realize, especially with the recent Democrat win in the judges' race in Wisconsin, that going after Musk's words works. And going after his actions works. By far the most common sign I saw was equating Elon Musk to a Nazi. And there was a lot of Nazi-based attacks on Elon and Trump. And do I think Elon's a Nazi? No. But he doesn't do himself any favors. He didn't help himself with that salute at the inaugural event. Quite a few images of that incident, too, on the signs. Look, the signs are R-rated at these protests now. I tell you, it's not for kids. Although there were a lot of kids there. That always kind of rubs me the wrong way when parents bring little kids to the protests and actively engage them in the protesting. Like, these kids don't know what's going on with the effort to cut government jobs or entitlements or tariffs. They're being used, right? And I say the same thing about the right. Just leave the kids out of it. Leave them alone until they're old enough to know what they are protesting. That should be the norm. Now, the violent imagery struck me. With any movement, you are always going to have radicals that endorse physical harm against their political opponents. You certainly see it on the right and in the MAGA movement. Hang Mike Pence, right, on January 6th. And you saw it here. You saw references to how we need a French Revolution type event in the United States. There were signs featuring guillotines. A lot of flags of the state of Virginia. And if you don't know the state of Virginia flag, it's a half-naked warrior who has just stabbed a king. And she's got her spear in her hand, and she's standing over the body. Except these people had replaced, and one guy was selling, one with an image of Trump laying there and dead on the ground. And of course the flag says, Sic Semper Tyrannis, that's the motto of the state, thus always to tyrants, words famously spoken by John Wilkes Booth as he jumped on stage after killing Abraham Lincoln. So it's subtle. But if you know your Virginia flag, if you know some Latin, it's obvious what they were promoting, and they'll deny it all day long. But look, I think a lot of us, be honest, a lot of us have thought at some point, gee, wouldn't things be better if so-and-so politician weren't around? But we don't promote these ideas in polite society. It's lowbrow. It's not appropriate in America. Now, if you're talking about a leader like Putin, Kim Jong Un in North Korea, or Maduro, right? People who are really dictators, by all means, take a shot. But in America, we are not to the point yet where we want to be encouraging people to think that that's all right. We don't want to normalize it. Another guy had a sign suggesting that Pelosi and Schumer commit ritual suicide. It's all in the YouTube video. Check it out, Bite Size Politics. And another thing I saw were hundreds of attendees wearing masks. COVID masks, old and young, walking around with masks on all day long. And I was not expecting that since we were 3 years out from COVID now. But man, many on the left still mask up, and they're either doing one of two things. They're either hiding their faces so no one recognizes them, and I guess they fear that something might happen to them, if that makes sense, if you believe that the government is going to start rounding people up off the streets and sending them to camps for opposing Trump. It's far-fetched. Or they're still afraid of COVID and they are virtue signaling. Like they used to. They're being responsible while conservatives don't care about other people's health. And it's probably that one in most cases. Listen, lefties, the normies no longer wear masks. It's mostly only those people who are trying to make a statement. And they were trying that. I mean, that's what these political rallies are for, right? They're trying to make a statement. Overall, I think the left must view the rally as a success, right? I think it's okay. I noticed some people were wearing AOC swag, buttons, shirts. She's clearly seen by many as the leader of the party right now, which is a big mistake if the left decides to move further in a progressive direction. But overall, protest is good. It's healthy. Participants should just be sure not to get too agitated or threaten the other side with violence. That's a big no-no. Big protest no-no. The markets are once again way down. There's a great fear of Trump's tariffs driving up prices, and the market's taking a hit. And look, if that happens, if they drive up prices politically, it's hard to see how that works out for Trump. I've said repeatedly that the one thing people won't stand for after 3 years of terrible inflation is more inflation. He's playing with fire. It just strikes me as so odd that Trump is doing this now. At the same time, he's trying to get his agenda through Congress, because if his approval rating drops into the 30s because of the tariffs, or if congressional Republicans decide not to stick with him anymore because they're hearing it from their constituents back home, his tax cuts could be in trouble. He's already going to have a heavy lift. He could have implemented the tariffs at any time. He can do it unilaterally. Could do it in the last year of his administration when he's a lame duck. Instead, he is risking his administration by doing it now. And he doesn't seem to care. He doesn't seem to care that people are worried about the economy. I mean, he legitimately, I don't think he knows what's coming here. Unless we're all wrong and prices don't go up. But that kind of defies basic economics. My view is that this could be devastating, a devastating mistake, and really could come back to bite congressional Republicans in the butt in 2026 and in 2025. Because people are scared. One of the things I've always said is that no leader should ever make his constituents scared, and no politician should ever disregard people's fear, and that's what it seems like the Republicans are doing right now with tariffs. Because if you listen to Trump's surrogates on the cable news shows, they either deny that the tariffs will cause economic harm, or they say, oh, well, got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, or it's just going to be temporary. I'm sorry. If you voted for this thinking that we're going to lower prices, sorry guys, we lied. Yeah, I'm a little salty about that too. And additionally, I think that tariffs are unnecessary, these tariffs, and that the American people will get virtually nothing out of this. But, most Republicans are still on board. Some senators have openly come out against them, but it doesn't matter because they don't get a say. It's all Trump. So the left can protest. I know it's more to make themselves feel better than make any serious change. That's typically what protests are for these days. But the real chance they have of stopping Trump comes from Trump himself. So if he tanks the economy, that dilutes his power. I'm Dan Joseph. Thanks for watching or listening to the podcast. Please subscribe either on Apple Podcasts or on YouTube at Bite Size Politics. Remember, stay reasonable. Don't fall for talking points. consume a variety of different media sources each day, one of the things that really irks me is how Fox News is 100% on board trying to sell these Trump tariffs in an insanely dishonest way. When you know that many of them don't support them at all. And same thing with the congressional Republicans. But it's wall to wall on Fox News. Tariffs are great. And it's gross. I'll see you Wednesday.